morning, everyone. My name is Joe Peters. I'm an attorney with the firm of Mandelbaum Barrett. I am a partner. I have been practicing law for about 49 years, predominantly in the civil litigation and the personal injury and workers' comp area. I am also co-chairman and have been for 19 years of the personal injury and workers' comp department at Mandelbaum Barrett. Now, I've been asked to speak a little bit here about workers' compensation for employers and employees, and I've also been asked to speak about personal injury and how it impacts on restaurants. Okay, so let's start. We'll break it down into two areas. Let's start with workers' compensation. Now, workers' compensation for restaurants and for all employers in New Jersey with a number of employees must have workers' compensation by statute. This is a statute-oriented situation in which you as employers must have a workers' compensation insurance policy to insure all of your workers. These are all of the people that you have control of in your establishment. Whether they work part-time or full-time, you need to have coverage for those people. Okay, now there is a number of different types of workers' compensation insurance policies, and I strongly suggest, as I will later on in your personal injury and liability problems, that you have an agent that you discuss the workers' compensation insurance and the coverage you have. I also think you should have an agent for your liability coverage, and we'll talk about that later. Now, your obligation is to supply a workers' compensation policy for all of your employees and to give a safe place. Now, what's the real problem in restaurants? Now, restaurants are a fast-moving industry. It's an environment where everybody's moving around and trying to get everybody served in a reasonable time and making sure your customers are happy. Not only do you train your staff on how to wait on tables and how to cook and how to make sure people are taken care of appropriately and their silverware is on there, but you also should be training them on safety procedures inside of your establishment, outside of your establishment, maybe even further than that. So the type of injuries that you're really concerned with are slip and falls, trip and falls, slipping on oil or something wet inside of your establishment, cutting themselves, chefs, people who cut up carrots or vegetables. All of those are dangerous activities inside of your place. Also, lifting anything, if you have people who lift things, or even your waitresses or waiters can develop bad backs or chronic back problems. So any kind of repetitive problem you might have can be a workers' compensation case. Now, and that can cause like a carpal tunnel or a chronic back problem. Even people that you now send to another establishment, let's say you have 2 or more restaurants and you're sending a manager or wait staff, while they're traveling from any destination that you send them out, the workers' compensation policy impacts, and that workers' compensation will cover that. Now, what does it cover them for? It covers them for injuries. It covers them for medical bills. It also gives them a lost wage factor. And it then eventually, if it goes to a courtroom, it covers them for permanent injuries. These are all explained to you in a workers' compensation policy. And these are all things that you should become familiar with. I know that you train your staff to wait on tables. You also need to train your staff about the type of injuries that come inside of your restaurant and make sure you can do what's appropriate to prevent those injuries to happen. It's very important that you have the same type of training, whether it's for your staff or waiting on people or cooking, that they be careful with boiling water and hot oil and the flames. All of those things can cause problems. Now, how do you really prevent that situation from happening? You need to have maybe a video or a pamphlet, and maybe the workers' compensation carrier, when you take out the insurance, will actually have that type of video or have a do's and don'ts and nuts and bolts on how you train your staff for safety. Now, some of the things you can do, obviously, some of the easy things you can do, maybe you can supply non-skid shoes or sneakers or stuff like that for your staff to wear. I have seen that where the entire staff is wearing this same type of non-skid. Why are they wearing that? Because they're coming in and out of the area where the food is being cooked. So now there's a likelihood that maybe oil will spill a little bit here or there, and they track that out into the area where they're now waiting on tables, and it now becomes very slippery for them. So clearly something like that, mats inside of the area and mats on the outside, as soon as a wait staff leaves it, and maybe as soon as they get into the area where your customers are, those mats maybe were something they can wipe their foot. Even a vegetable falls on the floor and it winds up in the bottom of someone's shoes, becomes a slip and fall danger. So you need to train the staff, your manager, your key employee. Any kind of faulty equipment should be replaced, including maybe taking a look around and making sure that all your chairs are solid for the people that are sitting in the chairs. We've had cases where the chairs have collapsed. And it's not because of the size of your patron, it's because the chairs are wear and tear. So making sure that all of your appliances, all your chairs, all your knives are cut, or be able to cut something through so they don't cause a slip of the knife. Maybe gloves for the staff inside, something like that, can help prevent a type of injury. What you're trying to do is prevent all injuries. And why are you trying to prevent injuries? Because you don't want to be reporting accidents with your staff, because that causes you to report with them every time someone's injured. Now, how do you do that? Well, most of the time there is a time limit on when you should report an injury to someone who's in your employ. Okay, and the workers' comp policy that you get will probably have some file or some sort of form to report a first injury. It's important. There are time limits on reporting injuries to workers' compensation carriers. Some of the time limits are as short as 30 days. Most of them are much longer than that. And it's important that you document. Someone slips and falls in your kitchen. Someone says, I just hurt my back. I slipped and fell, or I sprained my wrist cutting carrots or vegetables. Something like that should be reported immediately. Medical care should be advised. You should fill out the form. You should look for witnesses. You should put the date and the time. If there is a video camera inside of your kitchen, on the outside of it, or let's say there's video camera inside, anything at all, check the video camera, take the video out, make sure you document in every way possible someone's injury, because your insurance carrier, your workers' comp carrier, is going to want to know what you know about this and how it happened. And you're going to want to know what happened here so that maybe you can prevent the next one down the line. If someone comes in and reports that they fell yesterday, okay, that's a little bit more difficult, okay? But still, see if you can find witnesses, people who have knowledge of it. Maybe she reported it to a waitress or somebody, some cook or somebody who manages the restaurant. It's really important that you're even insured for anyone moving around outside of the restaurant if they're on the restaurant's time. Now, what do I mean by that? Let's suppose that you have a parking lot and now they park right across the street, or they park in your parking. And let's say that you own the establishment. Well, that parking lot is your responsibility as well. So you can't let it go into disrepair. If an employee falls on the way into work, not when they're driving to work, going and coming is a little bit more difficult. But let's say they park in the lot, now they're crossing your parking lot, or they're crossing someone's parking lot to get to the job. That could easily be a workers' comp. So you have to police the outside as well for potholes, for cracks in your parking lot, for your sidewalk, the steps coming up and down. Inclement weather, ice and snow are also your responsibility. If you're open and you're a commercial establishment and it's not currently snowing at that time, but let's say it's snowed early morning and now hours later you're opening up, well, that's your responsibility to make sure it's clean and safe. It's important, though, that if you're renting like in a large strip mall or you're renting an establishment, that you read your lease now and establish whether or not you're responsible for snow removal or for maintenance or filling potholes or maybe the landlord is responsible for it. But in any event, your workers' compensation insurance will cover anyone who's injured while they're in the employ of you. But it's important that you, as the owner of the restaurant, understand that clearly it's imperative that you do everything that you can to prevent injuries of your staff for multiple reasons. Of course, the big one everyone knows about is if you do have a claim and you have multiple claims, it's very likelihood that your workers' compensation carrier or insurance company will increase your rates. And any increase in rates is something that you don't want. The second and most important thing is, let's say it's a key employee. It's one of your best waitresses. It's your manager, your assistant manager. It's your chef or your assistant chef, or any of your key employees, let alone just an employee. You now have to fill that space if they're injured and they're out of work, because workers' compensation gives you, as an employee, your lost wage as well. It's set on a scale and it's figured out based on income, and that's printed and that changes every year by statute. But it's something that really, as an owner of an establishment, you want to make your place safe for your employees. If you make your place safe for employees, it will also help making it safe for everyone who's coming there, whether it be someone who's coming to eat at your establishment, or one of your vendors, or the postman delivering mail, or anyone like that. They're all at risk, and you want to make your place very safe for them. So the key is to try and prevent these things as best you can, but the key also is giving your staff the knowledge to prevent these things. These are how things happen. If somebody looks like they're getting tired, maybe you give them a rest. Maybe they've been working long hours and your restaurant is so busy and they're running in and out. That repetition could cause a sore back. It can cause sore shoulders, and they're going to blame the restaurant on that. So being aware of what it's like to work in the restaurant and safety. Now, how do I get all of this knowledge that I'm trying to give to you right now? Well, there's multiple ways. The first way is when you talk to an agent for your workers' compensation, more than likely the agent might be able to help you on do's and don'ts. Also, the workers' comp insurance carrier is going to do everything they can so that you have the knowledge. And lastly, you can talk to your lawyer, one of us here at Mandelbaum Barrett, to help you with the insurance and the problems that may come up, not only in training your staff, okay, that's one thing, but in training your staff to be safe, okay? And then doing it that way is a good way to help you in the workers' comp area. Now, the key element in workers' compensation is there is not an assessment for pain and suffering. I know you read about these cases that come in and they come in for millions of dollars on strains and sprains of the back. Well, in workers' compensation, there is no pain and suffering. There is only what I told you before, okay, which is they get paid for their medical bills, they get paid for lost wages, and they get a permanency, but no pain and suffering. Pain and suffering comes in now when we skip topics. So if I'm going to skip to a second topic here, it will be the liability part of owning a restaurant and a business. All businesses are basically the same, but owning a restaurant and or a business, you need to have coverage for liability. Liability insurance, a commercial policy, can also be purchased, and I recommend highly that you purchase it from an agent, that you hire an agent. There are tons of independent agents out there. Now, they don't work for Geico or any of those companies. Okay, Geico doesn't have any agents. They don't have anybody who tries to help you. Call them up and you have to pick your own insurance. Well, I don't recommend that. I clearly think that's a very difficult way to understand the insurance industry. And of course, lawyers at Mandelbaum Barrett understand what kind of insurance you should have. And clearly the people in the personal injury department are concerned about what kind of insurance all of our own people have. So you can always bring your declaration sheet or fax or email a declaration sheet of an insurance policies to your lawyer here at Mandelbaum Barrett, and we can try and advise you on what kind of insurance is appropriate. So let's talk about now. You've got your safety procedures in force. You've got your mats out. You've got your gloves out. You're taking care of everybody in your own. You're trying to do the best job you can for safety procedures as well as cooking and serving people. Now you have a bunch of people in your place that expect it to be safe, okay? They don't expect to have oil on the floor. They don't expect to have water on the floor. They don't expect to have a tripping hazard. All of these things that we talked about before can cause a really dramatic problem for you as the owner of a restaurant if, in fact, you don't have some safety procedures, additional safety procedures in. So let's say there's a spill of water on the floor, and it spills from one of the glasses, whether it's a patron who spills it, and or your waitress or waiter spills it. It doesn't make any difference. Now you should immediately take action. Let's say your manager or someone like your manager or one of your top employees who's looking around all the time, one of your waiters or waitresses notices a spill. And it's a spill in the aisle where people are going back and forth to the bathroom, paying the bills, doing what they are supposed to do. In any event, they should not leave that spill. They should immediately notify somebody, but do not leave the spill. Okay, because if someone walks down the aisle right behind them and slips and falls, that's really negligence on the part of the establishment not to have done something about that. If that slip, that oil or the gas or water is there for a period of time, then lawyers are going to say that you should have done something about that. You should have brought a cone out, an orange or yellow cone. You should have said to somebody, watch the spill. You should have got somebody out there with a mop, mopping it up immediately. I don't know if you have a crew or not, but if you do have a crew, they should be walking the premises all the time. Walking the establishment is a good way to find and see things that are safety problems and correcting them before anyone gets injured and you wind up in a liability suit. So these are difficult things to do. I understand that, but these are the types of things you need to do. You also need to do, as we talked about a little bit before, workers' compensation. Now, your parking lot, your stairs, all of those are your responsibility if you own the premises, or if you're renting and the landlord and the lease says that you have responsibility for maintenance, removal of snow. Any of those things, if you don't do those things adequately, that's why you should have people who walk the premises. Maybe in the morning, when you open up, someone walks inside and outside to make sure that the people overnight cleaning didn't leave some oil, leave something around. That would be dramatic if somebody came in and fell, and they could prove that it was there overnight. That's your responsibility. So your responsibility is to make it safe. It's like your home, okay? It's like your family. Your staff is your family, okay? The people that are in your establishment are your family for the time they're in your establishment. You want to make sure that everything you do be the same as you did it at home. Now, the major difference between these two is that pain and suffering now enters the picture. Pain and suffering now are the cases where someone is disabled with a back injury and has a serious surgery, and now they get an award of $1 million, okay? Because they have the surgery so significant that they are actually putting plates and screws in their back, or they fall and hit their head and they have a traumatic brain injury. Any of those things become catastrophic when you own a business and something terrible like that happens. Even worse, let's say you have a couple of vehicles that you are insuring now through the restaurant. ABC Restaurant owns 2 vehicles. Okay, now they're under the commercial auto insurance policy that you have. It's probably part of your liability for them. Again, you get an agent to make sure that all your vehicles that you use for work are insured appropriately. But again, if they're driving and they rear end somebody and the injury is terrible, traumatic, you want to make sure you have enough coverage. Enough coverage is up to the individual for sure, up to their net worth, up to how they want to protect themselves. An umbrella is on top of that insurance. That's something that everyone should be considering. Umbrellas are not expensive. If you own a home and you have a restaurant of value, now you have stuff to protect in case you or someone under you, one of your employers or employees, co-employers have a terrible accident. Now your establishment could be responsible. They're out doing something for the restaurant. Now, if that happens, I strongly suggest you talk to your agent about an umbrella. Make sure you're covered. Now, umbrellas can also insure your own staff under underinsurance and uninsured insurance. UM and UIM insurance which is critical to have as well for your own protection, for your employees' protection, driving that car, for all of your passengers. You should also have that on your personal insurance. So an agent can tell you all of these things. Hopefully they will tell you. If not, call your lawyer. Insurance policies now are very complicated and they hide disclaimers and exceptions on page 27 or 57. And it's very tough to figure out what they say totally. That's why I'm recommending highly an agent, and then you talk to your lawyer. What other problems do you have? Clearly, the pain and suffering is the biggest problem. So now you're defending yourself. Okay, an accident happens at your place, someone is injured. You really have to defend yourself. And the way you do that is get all the facts. If there is a spill and you have video or a camera, take pictures of exactly what they say happened. Get their name, address, telephone number, get all the witnesses. If they were with their brother or sister, get the names of everyone that were there. Because now you're going to be possibly in litigation and you want to verify everything that they say is true and accurate. You don't want, you want to know whether it's a slip and fall, they injured their low back. You don't want them throwing in another injury that they've had or they had a couple days later into your accident. So documenting what happened there would be very important. Now, again, your liability insurance company may give you a list of how to document it. But the truth is, you document it by common sense. You want every single fact. You don't ignore someone who slipped and fall and gets up, okay? That slip and fall, you see someone slip and fall, you make sure they're okay, you get their name, because sometimes injury don't appear until hours or days later, and now they're coming back to you and you don't have any records. Your insurance company and your lawyers are not going to be happy that you're not prepared. So the difference here is something happens on your property, no matter how little you think it is, take down the information. If you have video, protect the video, right? Those types of things are very important when you're involved in defending yourself now about an injury, a trip and fall on your front sidewalk because the sidewalk is raised. Now, if it's a commercial sidewalk, it's your responsibility if you own the property. If it's a residential sidewalk, it's not your responsibility to fix sidewalks. But in New Jersey, commercial sidewalks right now are the responsibility of the owner of the property. Now, again, if you have a lease, all right, then that lease might say, well, who's going to be repairing the sidewalks and parking lots? But this is kind of a nutshell of what we believe to be really important as a restaurant owner or a owner of any business in general. Restaurants are a little bit more significant because of the spills that can happen there and the number of people in and out fast, everyone working at a little bit higher speed than, let's say, in a law office where everyone's walking at a normal speed. Everyone in restaurants is walking at a little bit higher speed. So these are things that you need to protect yourself with. We can help you protect yourself in many ways. And if it's necessary, you can call me. Thank you.